Let's understand the new in-box Toy Cupid bow and rate it for different styles of play. Open the new in-box Toy Cupid bow to get the familiar equipment Toy Cupid bow. Equip the bow on your active familiar to add 2 familiar experience per combat, which is near best in slot for familiar equipment, only beaten by the Wardrobe-O-Matic familiar equipment on certain days. Wearing the Toy Cupid bow gives your familiar a chance to stagger your enemy each round of combat. Once your familiar completes 5 combats in a row with the Toy Cupid bow equipped, runaways and losses count, your familiar will retrieve their own equipment. If the familiar doesn't have its own equipment, such as the leafcutter ant, it will instead retrieve the gift item Heart Necklace. Each familiar can retrieve its familiar equipment once per day, and you can use this method to get as many familiars as equipment as you like. The Toy Cupid bow is particularly useful for familiars whose equipment disappears at rollover, such as the Corn Beefadon's amulet coin. Owners of the Toy Cupid bow won't need to visit the cake-shaped arena or own the Tome of Clip Art to summon familiar jacks in order to get familiar equipment in hardcore ascensions. If you own any rare or expensive familiars, you may be able to make some meat by selling their equipment each day. Why might other players buy familiar equipment? The 2006 Mr. Store familiar Comma Chameleon duplicates the combat actions of any familiar in the game for 40 to 50 combats once you feed the Comma Chameleon your chosen familiar's equipment. Comma Chameleon owners end up purchasing large quantities of familiar equipment for this reason. Last but definitely not least, the Toy Cupid bow has a chance of snagging missed item drops after every fight. This is a little different from the dolphin mechanic in the sea, which guarantees the missed item will drop at the cost of winning a separate combat against a dolphin, 1 adventure, and a dolphin whistle. The Toy Cupid bow triggers at the end of every fight where an item drop was missed, though there's no guarantee that the bow will retrieve the missed item. The Toy Cupid bow is similar to the 2020 Mr. Store accessory retrospects, but what makes the Toy Cupid bow unique is that you also have a chance to retrieve missed conditional item drops. Conditional items are commonly called rares. Examples of rares that the Toy Cupid bow can retrieve are the accessory Gingerbeard from Gingerbread Gentrifiers in Gingerbread City, and the usable item Spice Melange from Giant Sandworms. Figuring out which conditional items the Toy Cupid bow can snag requires understanding how conditional item drops work. We'll focus on the conditional items called rares, rather than the conditional items that only drop during a certain quest or have other character conditions. Most items have a base drop rate. For an example base drop rate of 10% without any item drop buffs, you would expect the item to drop 1 out of every 10 fights against the monster. Conditional items also have a separate rate, which determines whether they can drop at all. Gingerbeards only have a 2% conditional rate, along with their 10% base drop rate. Without any item drop buffs, you would expect a Gingerbeard to drop 1 out of every 500 fights against a Gingerbread Gentrifier. If you completely maximize the item drop rate through buffs, the Gingerbeard would still only drop 1 out of every 50 fights with a Gingerbread Gentrifier due to the conditional rate of 2%. Now let's say that the 2% conditional rate succeeds, but you miss out on the Gingerbeard because your item drop rate is less than max. This is the Toy Cupid bow's time to shine. It will give you another chance at the item, potentially letting you receive the Gingerbeard that failed to drop. Now let's consider another conditional item example. The Congressional Medal of Insanity from Last Crimbo's Monster, Section 11, has a 100% base drop rate. Why didn't everyone have an inventory full of Congressional medals then? That's because their conditional rate was only 0.1%. Meaning that the Congressional Medal of Insanity only has a chance to drop 1 out of every 1,000 fights against the Section 11. Though, because of the 100% base drop rate, you'll receive it every time the conditional rate succeeds, regardless of your item drop buffs. The Toy Cupid bow can't help snag the Congressional Medal, since the problem has nothing to do with item drop buffs. The Toy Cupid bow is one of 5 Mr. Store items that give you an extra chance at conditional item drops. The Source Terminal's combat skill Duplicate, Melodromedary's combat skill Spit on Them, Emotion Chip's combat skill Feel Nostalgic, and using the daily affirmation Always Be Collecting as a combat item are the others. These combat skills can only be used a limited number of times per day, and affirmations are limited by budget, while the Toy Cupid bow triggers on every single combat where an item drop is missed. Other hard-to-obtain items are not conditional items or rares because there's no separate conditional rate, though their base drop rate is very small. Items with sufficiently small base drop rates cannot be forced with a yellow ray, such as the familiar Emberiza Oriola's skill Go Down in Flames, or the combat item Viral Video. Consider Accidental Mutton from the Hot Werewolf in the Dreadsylvanian Woods. Accidental Mutton's base drop rate is 0.1%, so without item drop buffs, it would drop 1 out of every 1,000 fights against a Hot Werewolf. The Toy Cupid bow can help snag Accidental Mutton, since when it fails to drop, that's because item drop buffs are less than max. The Toy Cupid bow also helps with typical everyday drops as you adventure. Keep it equipped to finish many council quests faster, such as Twin Peak in the Orc Chasm quest or the Pyramid in the quest for the Holy MacGuffin. So how does the new in-box Toy Cupid bow measure up? You receive all the benefits of the Toy Cupid bow simply from having it equipped, so no daily limits or location interactions to remember. The bow makes it easy to level up familiars while receiving extra item drops, both particularly helpful for the current special challenge path. I rate the new in-box Toy Cupid bow 4 out of 5 stars for quality of life. The new in-box Toy Cupid bow's potential to get extra conditional item drops from every combat makes it unparalleled for item farming, even without considering the extra normal item drops from equipping the bow. I rate the Toy Cupid bow 5 out of 5 stars for farming. In contrast, the Toy Cupid bow does little to help improve scores in PvP minigames. Hibernation preparation for familiar experience gained at the end of combat is an exception, and it may help with minigames that require gathering certain items from monsters such as Installation Wizard. I rate the bow 1 out of 5 stars for PvP. Picking up missed items and higher level familiars both help speed up council quests. I rate the new in-box Toy Cupid bow 3 out of 5 stars for speedruns. I hope this helps you decide if you should pick one up.